Hi everyone, thanks for watching laurieWIRED, and in the last video in our series we started looking at an Android banking Trojan, and we saw that it was using the accessibility settings and doing some kind of abuse there. And we also noticed that it was using a bunch of different string encryption techniques, so we wrote a custom decryptor to decrypt all of those strings that we were finding. And we ended up looking at a JSON object that looked related to the accessibility abuse. So in this video, we're going to continue on and analyze that JSON object fully, and then we'll just follow the reverse engineering trail from there and see where it takes us. So let's open up our project in JDEX, and I already have it up. And we're going to be looking at this JSON object right here and trying to see what it's doing. So let's just start from the top here. First of all, this isn't an else. It's checking to see if a file already exists. And it was looking for a file in the APK directory named system.apk, if you remember. So let's pull up our decoder. That was system.apk in the APK directory. Otherwise, we're going to start storing a bunch of different data inside of this JSON object. So let's just look at this JSON object and see what it's doing. So we're putting a bunch of different strings inside of here. Let's just see what these are real quick. OD. Continue on using our decoder. And I'll just keep going through and naming these params. Okay. Malware string params, and we'll make sure that everybody can see this. Let's just go through and name all these. I have a feeling that these, if we just start labeling these strings, it's going to make a lot of sense real fast. So I'll just go through. Service working while. Okay. Maybe some service related to the accessibility settings. Okay. We're doing some string concatenation here. So the empty string plus this.d. First, let's see what this is labeled. It's UD. Tick. See what this .d is returning. Oh, it's just an integer. We'll do X to get cross references. Okay. Okay, let's just name this int1. Since I'm not really sure what this is yet, I can always rename it in the future if I figure out. ID bot. This.a.a. Let's see what this is returning. Okay. Let me rename this so I can figure out better which one it's looking at. So name malware method 1. So we can find it. Okay, it looks like it's calling the one that's returning a string, not the one that's returning void. And passing in a string to that, plus the context we're currently in. And it looks like it's checking to see if we're getting some shared preferences. What shared preferences are we trying to see if we have? Settings, okay, makes sense. Okay, looks like we are actually getting the settings and editing some shared preferences right here. Okay, so I'm going to rename this as malware, edit, shared preferences. Okay, let's go back. That didn't take me back to my JSON object. Here we are. Okay. Continuing on. VD, that was our variable name. Ah, accessibility. This is looking promising still. I like where this is going. Oh, and that was our accessibility service class. So this one right here, this is extending an accessibility service, if you remember. So that allows the application to have its own accessibility service running. And we have to extend from that Android framework class right there. Okay, so it looks like this is still just related to manipulating the accessibility services. Here we have... okay, let's see what this is returning. This is making a new JSON object. We have a JSON object inside of a JSON object. That's fun. So this is another kind of if statement, by the way. So if this is true, then this. Otherwise, this. Okay. Call this malware new JSON object. We'll just leave it as is for now. This is looking really interesting. The Google, that's Google's Authenticator app. So if we want to just, curious what they're doing with this. Yeah, this looks like it's doing something related to Google's Authenticator app. So maybe it's trying to bypass it or something like that. This is for two-step verification on your phone. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. We'll take a look at that later. But let me go back. Okay, so now we have our JSON object, and we're passing that in string version to this method right here. Oh, that looks particularly interesting. If you notice, this is a dex class loader call. So the dex class loader takes in a path to an additional APK file on disk, and it actually loads that into the runtime state. And then it looks like it's followed by a reflective call, get method right here, that's looking for a method inside of that, and then invoking that using this other reflective call right here. So I like this. This is a good method. Name, malware, load, dynamic dex. Okay. So let's see. It's getting the APK directory. There we go. So now this makes sense because if we go back, it was checking to see if that directory and that APK existed before storing all of the different objects into the JSON object right there, and then finally calling this load dynamic dex. It looks like it's probably going to be passing this JSON as an argument to the dex file, to the method it's loading. So let's see. It's our contact. Let's name this malware JSON object. Yes, okay. So if we see in the invoke call right there, this is going to be creating a new instance of the class that it just loaded, and then passing that JSON object that it was storing stuff into up here to that dynamically loaded method. So let's see what it's doing. It's checking for the APK directory, load class, dex class loader file get directory, APK. Okay, let's see. Get dir. Let's see what else. What was that? That method name was DD. Right here. Let's see what that directory is. Outdex. Okay, cool. And I think just one more string here. This is the class loader, and then it's loading a class from that class loader object that it just created from that dynamically loaded dex file. And let's see which class name is trying to load. It was ED, I think it was, right here. Oh, that's good. So this is the package name followed by the class name. I like that. That's good. Malware stir. And we need to change these to underscores, not dots. And then I'm going to press the colon button to get a comment, and I'll just put the actual string that it was since I had to change it to underscores. Okay, we labeled that. It's loading the new class, and then let's see what method it's getting. So it stored the new class that it's loading, let's full screen this now, into this load class object, and now it's getting a particular method from this loaded class, and this is going to be the name of the method it's looking for, and then invoking right afterwards. So FD right here. Main, okay, fair enough, that's a good method name. Loading the main method and passing that JSON object that had some of the stuff about the accessibility service to that main method. So I'll be really curious to see what it's doing there. I'm not going to worry about the exception handling, I'm just going to worry about the file loading. Okay. Now let's go back. Oops, didn't take us back, did it? Okay, here we are. Now we're back to our JSON object. And what I'm thinking right now is that I would like to unpack this and see what it's doing with this dynamically loaded dex file, since it's passing this JSON object to that main method. So I think I'm just going to try and dynamically run this at this point and see where it's going from here. So what I want to do first is I kind of want to just backtrack a tiny bit to see where this is getting called from, because it's possible that this is getting called like way down somewhere in the file. And so I want to make sure that if I run this, it's actually going to get called. So let me just scroll up a little bit to the top of this method and see what other method calls this one. So we have checking to see if the file is created. Otherwise, we're doing this. So let's go back up and then on handle intent. So this was because it is an intent service. So when this service of this class right here. I'm actually going to name this malware intent service class. Actually, I'll make that uppercase since it's a class name. So when this service is called, then this onHandle intent is going to be called. So I'm going to click on my class name and hit X to get the cross references and see who is starting this service. And it looks like we're doing right here, this start service. Okay, and yeah, it's creating a new intent and then passing this class as the parameter here to start this intent service. And this is called an onCreate. And what class is this? It's this class. And I think this was our entry point to our application. This was our main class. So extends activity. So let me go back to my manifest right here. And yes, that was a main. So this DOGD, etc. right here, main launcher, that means it's going to be called first when the application is opened by the user. So then we come over to onCreate when that's called. And then at some point down here, we're going to be starting our service that is calling our DEX class loader. So the only thing where this could go wrong is, let me see. There's no if statements in this portion, so I know this code is going to get called. Let's just see. Then it's going to go to our onHandle intent. The only thing that could go wrong is there's quite a few if statements here when it's trying to check and see if we have the accessibility privileges here. So it might be waiting for some specific privileges or some specific input from the user before coming down here and running our loading code. But I think I'm going to chance it and I'm going to see if I can get this to run and unpack itself for me. So to do that, I'm going to start up my emulator, I think. Okay, so I have this documentation for running an emulator if you want to follow along or anything, but I am just going to start up my emulator. And this one, I'm going to be running ARM today just because I happen to have that up and running, ready to go, but I didn't see any native code inside of this, so I think you can be fine to run this on x86 and it'll work just fine since it's not running anything native. And actually to verify, we do text search, native, and I'm not seeing anything referencing native code, so you should be good to go. Let me start up my emulator, make sure my kernel modules are persistent. And I'm going to run my emulator in Docker this time, but you can feel free to use any emulator you want for this sample if you happen to be following along. And I think I'm going to use, let's see, I'm using laurieWIRED today, and I'm just going to use 8.1.0. Okay. We'll let that pull, and I already have my sample, banker.apk, put on here. And today we're going to be using the Medusa framework to unpack this. And if you're curious about looking at the Medusa framework, I'll probably have a video dedicated to this eventually, but I'm just going to be using the code loading portion of this today. But this is the Medusa framework. And this one only runs on Linux, and it runs through Python. Okay, looks like we're good. And our device is running, so ADB devices. Let's attach. Cool, looks like we're attached. Okay, and I'm going to copy over the screen. And again, I have this available, these notes right here if you want to follow along and use the same emulator as me. And I'm just going to copy and paste. We'll do some SSH tunneling so we can use screen copy. All right, so I did some SSH tunneling following these instructions. So now I should be able to connect directly to my device right here. So now we're going to be using screen copy. Let's see, ADB devices, make sure we're connected. Screen copy -s, and then the name of the emulator we want to connect to. Oops, missing a C. There we go. Okay, let me make that a little smaller. Looks good. Looks like our emulator is working perfectly. So now I need to install my APK. So ADB install banker.apk. And so one thing we need to do before using the Medusa framework is we need to make sure the FRIDA server is running on the emulator. So you're gonna need to download the FRIDA server from the downloads page right here. And make sure that, let me see if I can, yeah, server. Make sure that this is targeting the particular architecture of your Android device. So today I'm running on ARM64, so I downloaded this one already, and I'll have to push that to the device and run it. So ADB push FRIDA, and then the location, so I'm gonna put it in data, local temp, I'll just call it FRIDA server. Okay, so ADB shell, go root. Might help if I can spell. Okay, so here's our FRIDA server, and let's make sure it's executable. +x FRIDA server. And then we're gonna run /FRIDA server. So now if we wanted to, we can go to our, I have another terminal open here on my Azure VM, and I'll just do ADB shell and su, and we'll just make sure that our FRIDA server is running and listening on the FRIDA port. And there we go. So FRIDA server right here. So if you do not have FRIDA server running, this is not going to work and you will not be able to connect to Medusa. And that has confused me for an embarrassingly long amount of time before. So don't do that. But now we can. So we have our APK installed, our banker one right here. So this banker.apk. And let's just run Medusa. Python 3 medusa.py, and we want to connect to this one, our emulator. And if you remember, this was our package name for the banker APK that we installed. So if we go right here, see, this is part of our package name right here, or you can just do package, not that one. There it is, package right here, and that's our package name, so that's what Medusa is referencing. So let's go back to Medusa. So the nice thing about Medusa is it has a ton of different modules, especially some related to code loading. So we can see what modules we have available. And I'm gonna do code loading. And I think it's this one, but let me double check because we want one that's going to intercept DEX class loader. So let me just double check. I already have Medusa up here, so we can go to modules, code loading. And that's the one we're looking at. Yes. Path class loader, DEX class loader, base DEX class loader. All of these are different code loading classes inside of the Android framework that are commonly used for dynamic DEX file loading. So it looks like this is going to be intercepted, and it's going to write all of our information to disk when it does intercept any of these calls. So I'll use that. So use our current mod, and let's also do file system just because I want to see when it's writing that APK. So oops. Use file system, and then it's going to use all of those. We need to compile our new FRIDA script, and then okay, so now we have our app running here. That looks like the app that we're going to be running right here. Let's just run it. Run -n 0, and hopefully this intercepts a DEX class loader call, and hopefully we get our dynamically loaded DEX file dumped by Medusa. Okay. Uh-oh. Doesn't look like that worked. I don't think that ran properly. Interesting. Okay. Let me see if it wrote anything here. So ADB shell. Let's just go to the folder and see what it did. Okay, it doesn't look like it properly ran. There's no like files folder or anything like that. Out of curiosity, I wonder if I can run it myself. Yes, I can. Okay, well this looks like the accessibility service abuse. Let's see if it ran that time. Yes, it did. Okay, so maybe it's got some anti-debug or something and it doesn't like if FRIDA's attached. I'm not sure. Okay. This is a really interesting page though. Definitely it's trying to get you to allow some different accessibility options. Okay, let's try this one more time. Oops. Just gonna clear that. And I wonder, let's see if we just use one of these modules. Let's just try using the code loading one. I'm gonna make sure our FRIDA server is still running. Yep, that's still good. Yes. Looks like I might need to uninstall this and install it again because it's trying to do stuff in the background. Yes, okay. Let's try uninstalling and reinstalling and see if that makes a difference. So we need our package name. So I uninstalled it. Let me see if it removed the directory though. ADB shell. Okay. Yep, okay, looks like it removed our folder. So let's try installing it one more time and see if that works. edb install banker. And here we have our app again. Oops. Oh, there we go. App view. And let's go back to Medusa and run it one more time. And use let's just try using all of code loading and see what it does. Okay, last try. Let's try running this, and if not, I think we'll go back to reversing it statically and seeing if there's some kind of anti-debug or something that we're missing. Aha, okay. Now that looks like it's running. Looks like we have a new dex file found here. And it's loading this new class. Okay, that looks good. Loading class, yes. Hey, there's our system directory. And it doesn't look like we're getting a call to dex class loader, so I don't think that got triggered. Sometimes these are just benign dex files that it's loading. Looks like it's loading a couple different things. I wonder if this class exists on disk. Let me see. So let's go to JDEX and do com, ETH, GOC, LZCT. Let's see if that class exists. RPWAU. Yes, so it's loading classes that are still existing on disk, so I don't think it's doing any dynamic code loading yet. Let me see if this class over here exists. IUB. Yes, so that exists as well. So I don't think we've triggered our malicious dex file loading. So I think we're going to need to enable all the accessibility stuff in order to get it to actually load itself. Just to see, I'm going to start clicking buttons here. Oh, okay. Volume key shortcut. Let's just start enabling stuff and see what happens. I don't know what this means. Retrieve window content. I'll just pick the first one. Okay, that's good. I'm just gonna try and enable all permissions it's requesting. It doesn't seem to be working. We still... Oh, okay, we do have some new ones. But I think these are all ones that exist on disk. I don't see any calls to dex class loader down here. So it looks like I might have to translate this and hit enable. Okay. But I think I'm gonna go back to the static file, because I'm gonna see like what is it making sure that needs to be enabled, so that I can make sure I can enable it so I can get it to unpack itself. So let me kill this, because I don't think it's loading anything additional. It's just loading its own classes that are already there. Okay. So I think, let me go back to my main class. I think what needs to happen is I think we need to go back through to this service class here. And I think we'll need to analyze all of the different actions that happened before this dex class loader. So everything that happens up here. And let's make sure that there's not some if statement that's preventing us from continuing on here. And let's try and get it to actually unpack itself. So I'm actually going to do that in the next video, I think, in the next part. So thanks so much for watching laurieWIRED, everyone. In this video, we took a look at that JSON object that looked like it was related to the accessibility abuse of the application. We also found that while it was being put together, there was an additional call to a dynamically loaded text file. So then we tried to run our application and we saw that it wasn't actually getting to the point of loading that dynamic code. So in the next video, we're going to take a look at the code that happens before that call to text class loader and see if we can enable all of the accessibility settings to try and get it to the point of actually unpacking itself so we can analyze that payload. So thanks so much for watching laurieWIRED, and I'll catch you in the next video.